Okay, I'd just like to welcome everybody to the Waterfront Stewardship Committee meeting of October 23rd, 2025. I'd also like to note that we have Chris Ling attending the meeting remotely today. And absent from this committee is Sean Macholnick. I'd also like to acknowledge with respect that we're meeting on the traditional territory, the Lekwungen speaking peoples, and that we are honored to have the opportunity to build strong working relationships with the people of the Songhees and Kosapso nations. I'm calling this meeting to order at 2 o'clock, and I will be looking for a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting. Can I get a motion? Sarah Gibbons, thank you. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Nobody opposed, so that will be carried. Thank you. Next, we will have the minutes from the August 28th, 2025 meeting. Before we consider adoption, are there any errors or omissions to note? Not seeing any. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting? Thank you, Barri. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Nobody opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Public participation. So members of the public will now be provided an opportunity to present concerns or ask questions of the committee. We have no members of the public registered to speak virtually today, and no written submissions were received. So we will now move on to new business. Item 5.1, CRD programs presentation. We're pleased to welcome Gord Bavillier, Manager of Parks, to present the CRD programs presentation to the committee. So I will pass it over to you, Gord. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And yes, today we have the CRD programs presentation, and I believe we have Jody, Jennifer, and Barri online, and so they can take away their presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Gord. I will share my screen here. Where does it allow me to share my screen? Do you need to grant me access to share screen? Because I'm not seeing. Oh, here it is. There we go.
So Jody, just before you start, just so that the committee is clear, you are the Supervisor of Environmental Planning and Initiatives. We also have Barri Rudolph, Environmental Science Officer, and Jennifer Tyler, Harbours and Watersheds Coordinator. So thank you and welcome.
Correct, thank you. We have been slated a couple of times to come and present to this committee, and for several different reasons, we're finally making it here. So as was pointed out, there are three of us here from the CRD. I'm going to start us off, and I'll turn over to Jennifer and Barri as we go through the presentation. So thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak. The CRD conducts its business within the traditional territories of many First Nations, and we want to just acknowledge all of those nations who have a long-standing relationship with the land and waters here in our region. So I'm going to talk primarily about work that the Division Environmental Protection completes for the region. We have several services that are in support of our utilities, so solid waste, drinking water, and liquid waste management. So we do a lot of work around monitoring regulatory compliance for wastewater, drinking water, and solid waste. We also do work around assessing impacts to human health in the receiving environment. And so that's where Barri's going to talk about a lot of the stormwater monitoring that we do. We also have some contaminated sites work. We do audit and inspection of various businesses to control contaminants that are entering the stormwater sewers or the sewer system. And we do a lot of analytical services for drinking water and wastewater quality as well. Then there's a whole group of us who are providing services really in collaboration with our local government partners, First Nations and stewardship groups. And the CRD is often responsible for the outreach and education on behalf of the municipalities in the region to achieve behavior change. So those areas include conducting research and obtaining ecological inventories and mapping. And Jennifer is going to speak about some of the harbor inventories that we have done. We do a lot of work through coordinating and establishing collaborative partnerships, such as the Esquimalt Lagoon Stewardship Initiative, the Gorge Waterway Initiative, and the Boca Creek Initiative. We facilitate the development and implementation of various environmental strategies, often in partnership with our local government partners. A lot of the work that we do is trying to deliver training and build regional capacity, and we'll speak about that through invasive species as well as the goose management. And then we also do a lot of liaison with senior levels of government and First Nations. A big part of our team is to work on the public outreach and education programs on a variety of different topics, all of which we will talk about in this presentation today. So I'm going to turn over to Jen Tyler. She's our Harbours and Watersheds Coordinator, and she's going to speak to our Harbours program.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jody. So we're taking the approach of providing brief program overviews for programs and services that fall under EPRO. So yeah, I'll start with the Harbours program and return later for invasive species. So the objectives of the CRD Harbours Service are to work collaboratively to improve the ecological health of the core area harbors and their watersheds. This can include coordination on issues relating to the shore area environment, monitoring, mapping, reporting, education, and programs related to restoration and improvements of nearshore environments. So for some context, the core area harbors include Esquimalt Lagoon, Esquimalt Harbour, Victoria Harbour, the Gorge Waterway, and Portage Inlet. And the local government partners are listed here on the slide. Next slide, please, Jody. Thanks. So priorities for 2025 have been continued coordination of stewardship initiatives, which Jody briefly mentioned. So the CRD Harbours and Watersheds program includes the coordination of the Esquimalt Lagoon Stewardship Initiative, or ELSI, the Gorge Waterway Initiative, or GWI, and the Boca Creek Initiative, or BCI. So each initiative is a collaboration of local governments, community groups, institutions, and private citizens working together to improve the health of the marine environments in their watersheds. And I'll speak to ELSI in a little bit more detail shortly. So the next priority that Jody also touched on is support for mapping and monitoring. So we aim to collect ecological data sets to support the knowledge base for our work and the work of our partners. So this currently includes the completion of the Harbours Ecological Inventory and Rating Project. This includes a biological and physical mapped inventory throughout all of the core area harbors, and it also includes an ecological rating system. And this is an update of a project that was originally done 20 years ago. So an example of the intertidal mapping is shown here on the screen, and the subtitle deliverables were received this week, which is exciting. And the next steps will be to work to make the data sets available to the public on the CRD Harbours Atlas and to share with partners, including Colwood staff. So we've also been supporting DFO's management plan for European green crab. This is a highly invasive species that's now found in the Gorge and Esquimalt Lagoon. DFO is looking to slow the rapid expansion of this species and delineate their current extent in the areas. And we've been supporting these efforts, including an intensive trapping event in Esquimalt Lagoon that took place over the summer. So we'll continue to support education related to harbors and watershed stewardship. Examples here include continuing to host harbor speaker series events. We recently hosted a talk on European green crab with presenters from DFO and the Coastal Restoration Society. And other past talks have included Green Shores, Salmon Safe BC Eco Certification, 6 PPD Quinone, and Coastal Nature-Based Solutions. So these events are open to the public and take place in the CRD boardroom. And then we also look to support Green Shores projects through education and partnership. We offer Green Shores training to local government and First Nations staff through the Green Shores Local Government Working Group. And this group's facilitated by the Stewardship Center for BC. So moving on to the Esquimalt Lagoon Stewardship Initiative. As mentioned, LC is a stewardship initiative that falls under the Harbours program. It was established in 2000 and it's chaired and coordinated by the CRD. We have a part-time LC coordinator who splits time between the Gorge Waterway Initiative and other harbors and biodiversity projects. So LC has a vision to protect, enhance, and restore the health of Esquimalt Lagoon with the goals to promote and support lagoon stewardship and education, prevent further loss or destruction of wildlife, reduce contaminant inputs to the lagoon, and promote environmentally protective recreation uses and land uses. LC takes a watershed approach, taking into consideration that practices on land can impact water quality and habitats in the marine environment. And partners are listed here on the slide. Next slide. Thanks, Jody. So for 2025, priorities include continued support for volunteer monitoring. This included coordination of European green crab monitoring in partnership with GFO, which was already mentioned, as well as support for community cutthroat trout monitoring in Bee Creek. In past years, we've also provided some support for 6 PPD quinone monitoring. And support for these initiatives include liaising with partners, supporting permitting and scheduling, providing bait and leveraging networks for volunteers. And we also look for opportunities to partner or support other organizations in activities like invasive species polls or beach cleanups. So the next priority is outreach and education on environmentally sensitive uses of the lagoon, associated watersheds, and the migratory bird sanctuary. We attend a few events around the lagoon during the summer months to share information, and we recently partnered with Colwood and Royal Road staff on a biodiversity celebration event at Royal Roads. And we're currently working on developing some new outreach material for watershed residents. So we'll continue to coordinate quarterly steering committee meetings where we host guest speakers, share information, and identify opportunities to promote and support partner projects. And lastly, we'll look to discuss opportunities to continue to collaborate with Colwood staff, begin a review of the LC terms of reference, particularly now that the Colwood Waterfront Stewardship Plan has been finalized, and plan for future priorities. So yeah, next slide, back to you, Jody.
Jody, if you could just unmute yourself.
Oops, sorry. The on-site wastewater management program is another program that's applicable to the municipality of Colwood. Through the liquid waste management plan, we have commitments to develop and implement a regulatory program for on-site sewage systems. That is done through bylaw 3479, which regulates the maintenance of on-site sewage. The idea is that through the bylaw, the compliance measure is pumping out the holding tanks every 5 years. So we go through a process across the region. There's 5 municipalities now that participate in this service. And we go through and we get the records and send out notices to homeowners that have septic systems, reminding them of their maintenance responsibilities. The goals of the program are to protect public health and safety, to reduce the number of malfunctioning systems, support septic system owners in understanding the proper maintenance requirements for their septic systems, and to protect the environment and water quality. So within Colwood, there's over 3,000 septic systems. All of the yellow on the map here shows those properties that have septic systems. So there's quite a few. And I think I have actually talked about everything here. We also have a bunch of educational materials, and we run workshops called our Septic Savvy workshops with homeowners to help them understand the appropriate and proper maintenance requirements for their systems. In 2025, we have been working to assess compliance with the pump out requirements. We just finished, or actually, yeah, we just finished Septic Awareness Week. We've offered several septic savvy workshops to homeowners. We have both in-person and online opportunities available. And then we have also been offering to cost share for a full maintenance assessment. So it's sort of like a house assessment where you get an inspection of your entire system. They determine if there's any areas of that system that are malfunctioning and provide the homeowner with recommendations as to how to fix that system. So we've had pretty good uptake across the region in that. And if you know of septic system homeowners, by all means, encourage them to apply to participate in our maintenance assessment cost share. We will offer $500 to the homeowner to get the complete maintenance assessment done, and that's about $1,200 for that. And then another $200 if they make improvements and fix some of the things that are wrong. We also are working on integrated watershed management, and our aim there is to protect our local watersheds and the marine receiving environment by reducing stormwater contamination and improving overall watershed function. So we have developed an integrated watershed management plan, and we meet regularly with our municipal partners to pursue an effective and collaborative watershed management stewardship. We are working together to protect clean water and effectively manage flows. There's a lot of work going on around protecting and enhancing terrestrial and aquatic and nearshore marine environments. And of course, with our changing climate, we're really looking at how do we improve the resilience and adaptive capacity of our watersheds across the region. So our role for this comes through the liquid waste management plan, as well as our stormwater responsibilities, stormwater monitoring responsibilities. So we've done some work on development of regulatory compliance tools. So we have some model bylaws and a number of codes of practice for various sectors to help improve their management of rainwater and preventing pollution from leaving their properties, and a number of non-regulatory tools as well, such as we have developed in partnership with municipalities common design guidelines for green stormwater infrastructure that are applicable to this region. And the idea behind that is municipalities can then choose to adopt those guidelines, all or portions of them. Many of the municipalities refer consultants who are working on roads or green stormwater infrastructure to follow those guidelines as well. Again, we deliver a lot of watershed and stormwater outreach and education. And there's a lot of water quality of stormwater and creeks, which Barri will speak about. I do want to mention that the regulation of the stormwater discharges falls under the jurisdiction of the municipal government. So the CRD does not own any stormwater infrastructure. Our role through the liquid waste management plan is one of monitoring and bringing information around best management practices, and we do coordination around integrated watershed management. So we have quarterly meetings of our intermunicipal IWM group. We have just completed a project to upgrade the green stormwater infrastructure guidelines, and we are offering, we actually at the end of November, I think it is, we have a technical workshop for municipal staff and consultants to gain a better understanding of the green stormwater infrastructure guidelines and how they can use those. We are working right now on an overhaul and update to all of our stormwater outreach and education tools, and we deliver several campaigns throughout the year. We just wrapped up our fall pollution prevention campaign. And another thing that we do is the land cover updates, or this used to be known as the Urban Forest Stewardship Initiative that was started by Habitat Acquisition Trust. This was of great value to municipalities, and so and to the CRD. So the CRD has now taken over regular updates to the land cover information for the region. And I'll turn over to Barri now.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to talk about our stormwater monitoring program. I oversee the monitoring program and the reporting for the region. So we assess stormwater discharges, which includes the pipes, the creeks, and the ditches with the goals to reduce impacts to public health and the environment. So we monitor all the discharges at the point where they enter the marine environment throughout the region. We use that information to prioritize those discharges for action. And every year I produce an annual report. We also use that data to sort of focus in on source investigations. So when we do find contamination, we then go upstream and try to narrow it down before we pass it on to municipalities and other jurisdictions. As Jody said, we don't own any of the stormwater infrastructure. So we are doing this work on behalf of the municipalities to narrow down sources and just prioritize problems so that they can move forward with remedying them and fixing things as they come up. So the components of our program are, as I said, the stormwater discharge evaluations. That includes a measurement of bacteria. We use E. coli, and we also evaluate based on the potential for the public to come in contact with the stormwater discharges. So areas where there is swimming, those become more of a priority if there's also elevated bacteria. We also measure metals and hydrocarbons, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons in the sediments that are inside the pipes or within a creek, and then evaluate those based on guidelines to protect marine aquatic life or freshwater aquatic life. And so that leads into the watercourse monitoring we do. In the Colwood area, we do monitoring on Colwood Creek, Bee and Selleck Creeks. Each of those creeks are looked at the discharge twice a year, once in the wet season and once in the dry season. And then every 5 years, we do more comprehensive monitoring where we go upstream. We collect more variables, more parameters, water quality parameters, including metals and nutrients and benthic invertebrates, and sediment sampling as part of that. So we do kind of a full assessment every 5 years of the watershed health. We also look at the nearshore marine environment. So that's done as well every 5 years, and it's an intensive, as with the watercourse monitoring, the marine monitoring is also sort of an intensive process where we monitor for 5 consecutive weeks within 30 days in both the dry summer season and then again during the fall flush. Some work that's been sort of downloaded to us from Island Health involves the summer swimming beach monitoring. So we employ a person in the summer from May long weekend to September long weekend. And that person goes out and fills bottles for Island Health at all the beaches that are public swimming areas. Island Health oversees that program. They pay for the analysis, and they also assess whether it's safe to swim in these areas. So that's done in Esquimalt Lagoon and Lookout Lake within Colwood. And then, as I mentioned, we do source investigations when we find areas of contamination. And we also do some flow monitoring within Colwood Creek and some other creeks in the region, which is a continuous level monitor that's in the creek. And that data goes into FlowWorks. It's not in my annual reports, but it is available for anyone who wants it. I can send you the password or send you snippets of data so if you want to look at our flow monitoring data that's in Colwood Creek. So Esquimalt Lagoon, there's 21 inputs there for stormwater. Those are all monitored each year for E. coli. We do a visual assessment of the flow, and then we measure total metals. And as I mentioned, there's 3 creeks that we look at. So we look at nutrients, metals, the sort of physical conventional parameters like pH and DO, and then benthic invertebrates every 5 years. And again, the 5 marine stations that are in the creek, those are the black dots, if you can see those. Those are monitored every 5 years for bacteria, nutrients, and metals. And that work, those data are compared to water quality objectives that are they're draft objectives that we worked on with the province on quite a number of years ago, close to 10 years ago now. And so the parameters that were picked at that time were done by MOE, and as well as the locations. Some of these are historical locations that we monitored in the past before we started doing this water quality objective work. But every 5 years that's done, and it's done 10 times.
And Barry, can you just identify the difference between the triangles and
Yeah,
squares
sure.
and the colors, please?
Yes, so the squares are ratings. All of the symbols are rating based on either public health or environmental health. So the squares are public health ratings. A yellow is low, an orange is moderate, and a black is a high rating. I don't see any high ratings here. This data is, this is 2024 data, not 2025 data. Generally, we don't get high ratings in Esquimalt Lagoon and around this area for public health. We sometimes get some elevated bacteria kind of over in the toe, which could be due to birds. The orange, so the orange squares there you see are moderate ratings, and that those are ones that we've investigated, and I think for the most part, we think it's birds. There's a pond upstream of one of those discharges. And so when something's rated moderate, we'll often do investigations, especially in this area where there's not a lot of other problems going on. The triangles are environmental health assessments, so ratings. So those are based on sediment samples, metals and hydrocarbons, and whether they're elevated relative to marine water quality guidelines. There is one triangle up in the middle. It's hard to see where we did get some elevated metals, but we think that is probably an historical source and not an ongoing source of contamination.
All right, so back to me. So the other thing another thing that we do across the region is we now have a Canada Goose management service. And the aim of this service is to reduce the impacts of the non-migratory resident Canada Goose population here in our region. Our goals are to establish collaborative partnerships to reduce the population and their impacts. We share a lot of knowledge and engage support from others, and we monitor, report, and evaluate on the populations here. So we are suffering severe impacts, environmental, social, and economic impacts from the number of geese. So as I mentioned, geese were not normally in this region. They were actually introduced back in the 50s and 60s for hunting. And the weather here is so awesome that they decided they would never leave, and so they don't. So they do not migrate. We are now seeing really significant populations throughout our region, and they're having severe impacts to many of our estuaries and tidal marshes, including at Esquimalt Lagoon. There's a number of endangered ecosystems, such as on Trial Island. We've got, I think it's 40 nests just on Trial Island alone, and that's one of our best untouched or previously untouched Garry Oak ecosystems in that area. They're contaminating water, and both the farming community and recreational operators of recreational fields are experiencing huge impacts, economic impacts, especially for the farming community as a result of the number of geese that we have here. So we have completed this year a region-wide Canada Goose winter survey. Previous estimates had been, we maybe have about 7,000 Canada geese overwintering here. This year, the first ever region-wide survey that we've conducted, we counted close to 9,700 geese in our region. We have launched Goose Watch, which is an app that the public can use to identify where they're seeing geese. This really helps us with our long-term monitoring and our management plans. We've got a number of collaborative partnerships with both municipalities and stewardship groups where we've done a lot of work to expand the regional egg addling program. Since 2022, through egg addling, we have prevented over 7,000 eggs from hatching. And if you think about, about 60% of eggs that hatch reach breeding population. So that's, over 5,000 less breeding Canada geese here in our region, just as a result of the egg addling program. We are also implementing a communication strategy and public education program so that the public's really aware of what the impacts are and how much it's affecting our region. We have facilitated with our First Nations partners harvests where they're exercising their traditional rights to harvest. And we're doing a lot of work with the farming community on crop protection and migratory game bird hunting to try and reduce the populations. We do have a regional Canada Goose management plan that was actually developed back in 2012, and it identifies a target population of around 1,000 birds for our region. In the summer molt survey, so molt is when they've lost their flying feathers and right after nesting. And in our summer molt survey, we found that we had 6,700 geese last year, and this year it's around 5,700. So some of the measures that are being taken are certainly helping to improve the situation as with respect to Canada geese. And I'll turn back to Jennifer to talk about our regional invasive species program.
Thanks, Jody. I'll just give a quick overview of the program here. So the program began at the CRD in 2018 with the hiring of a half-time coordinator. And the objectives of the program are to reduce the impacts of invasives on the environment, economy, and health. And this is through establishing collaborative partnerships in the region and beyond, raising awareness of invasive species, developing and sharing outreach materials and knowledge, and encouraging management of invasive species to reduce their impacts and provide support to partners. So the CRD's Regional Invasive Species Program focuses on high priority new invaders in the region with the goal of eradication while possible. And these are often species that people may not be aware of. Next slide, please. So in 2025, staff have continued to coordinate and support management of high priority invasives such as knotweed, giant hogweed, and milk thistle, which is shown in this slide. And we do this through sharing best management practices, hosting workshops, and hiring skilled contractors that are available to conduct invasive species treatment and monitoring for partners. And this is done on a fee-for-service basis. So we've continued to chair the approximately 60 member Capital Region Invasive Species Partnership, or CRISP. And members of the partnership include municipalities, First Nations, Parks Canada, universities, and large land managers. So the group meets every second month and works together on networking, support, trainings, and mentorship. And of note, a regional priority invasive plant species list was recently updated with input from the group. So we'll also continue to provide and develop resources for invasive species disposal to reduce impacts from invasives getting into yard waste and compost streams. And staff will continue to serve as a resource for public and land managers by responding to many calls and emails for information and support. And with that, I'll hand it back to Jody to wrap up with biodiversity.
All right, and so our most recent new service, we're very excited about, the Regional Biodiversity and Environmental Stewardship Service. This was established back in January, February. So bylaw number 4575 establishes this regional service, and the purpose is to coordinate a regional approach to biodiversity, protection of ecological assets, and environmental stewardship. Initially, the service has only converted the existing invasive species program into a regional service, and it's formalized the local government requisition for our part-time invasive species coordinator. And we are currently sending a staff report up. It should be going to the November Environmental Services Committee to discuss additional staff capacity and operational funds so that we can do some more work on biodiversity across the board. So similar to many of our other services, this service will be looking to conduct research and assist with obtaining inventories and data, monitoring and mapping, and managing some of the key stressors such as invasive species. We will be coordinating, communicating, and establishing collaborative partnerships to protect, restore, and enhance biodiverse habitats and ecological assets, and to minimize the impacts of those stressors. And we hope to develop and implement an environmental stewardship strategy and public outreach program to engage the public in protection of biodiversity, ecological assets, and managing invasive species. So this year, we have kind of done some light biodiversity things. I think it's our 4th year for coordinating regional participation in the City Nature Challenge. And I believe this year we won the Capital Region and all of our iNaturalist partners won in 2 categories across North America, I believe it is. We have had some municipal and First Nations conversation around regional biodiversity data and inventory needs. Everybody's, struggling with how do we actually create a biodiversity inventory. So that's one of the things that the land cover work that I talked about under watersheds is really going to factor in. So we'll be having discussions in 2026 when the province apparently will make available the LIDAR data, the coastal LIDAR data, and then we'll be having conversations with our municipal partners about updating the land cover data. We also deliver a backyard biodiversity outreach campaign that happens every spring. And as I mentioned, actually it's now for 2027 to 2031. We are seeking permission from the board to develop an independent business case so that we can do some more work around biodiversity. So those are some of the key programs that we wanted to share with this committee. I think there's probably a lot of alignment here, and through the chair, if you would like us to answer questions, we would be happy to do so.
Thank you, Jody, Barri, and Jennifer for the presentation. There's a lot of information for this committee to take in. So there's no recommendations today. This is just for information purposes. So I thought maybe I would open the floor for any questions that anyone has on the presentation itself. Oh, and I do have a question from Mr. Glenn Willing. Please go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. Sorry, too loud. I have a question for you regarding the biodiversity. It's interesting that there are some of these invasive species that are very, very visible to the local individuals if they know what they're looking at, that have migrated into this area that were never here before. And one of them in particular is down at the north end of the Royal Beach site. And I'm not sure how that got here, but it is here and it's in several spots. People walk by it every day and no one ever says anything. Maybe staff don't understand what it is. It's the milk thistle, and I've lived here all my life. I've lived on a farm and farm property and whatever, and I have never seen it. And it's milk thistle, and it's all the way down. There's a path that goes down from Grattan down to the beach, and it's on the crest of the hill. You see it on the right-hand side. You'll see it on the left-hand side, and you'll see it down closer to the berry patch on the beach there. And I have seen no movement of anyone to eradicate it. As having worked at Royal Beach for 42 years, I spent about 1 year working with biosolids that were brought onto that site and used for reclamation. And there were a couple of different processes. One was from GBRD in Vancouver. They shipped about, I'd say, probably 3,000 to 4,000 metric tons over, and that was used. And then there was some material from Basin Bay, and that was a whole different process with lime, and it came out as well. And in this area, I think the prevailing wind from the west, I think that's where this thistle got established, and it is migrating as we speak to the north. So I think that's something that should be looked at.
So milk thistle is certainly one of our priority invasive species, and I might invite both Carolyn and Gord to speak to this issue. As I recall, the milk thistle was identified on the Royal Bay site shortly after that development began. I think you're correct that it came in with some soil that was transported to the site. And if I recall correctly, the developer of the site was required to do some pretty intensive management of the milk thistle on that site. But milk thistle, I think it produces, 300,000 plus seeds per plant. So it's a significant problem. And hopefully Gord is aware of that site, and Colwood staff and whoever the owners of that property should be doing some management of that. I don't know if Gord or Carolyn wanted to add anything on that piece. If you can, through the chair.
I can add some the city perspective. Yeah, we have been managing the milk thistle, especially where we first saw it up actually towards the behind the school site, which is now the school, but before the school was even there. And we've been managing that all the way down to the water with the developer managing their side. A lot of that milk thistle was actually on the other side. And I know that the developer spent quite a bit of money managing it as well. We have now seen a lot of it coming back, and it is earmarked for our invasive species contractor, who has been mainly dealing with a few other invasives for us. But next year, when they're in, we'll be managing a lot of that milk thistle going all the way down from Perimeter Trail, I believe is down to the water. So we are aware of it, and it is on our radar.
Thank you, Gord. And actually, I've just been notified that milk thistle is identified on our website as to be watched. Yeah. So thank you for that, Gord. Go ahead, Rick.
Just a point of interest. You mentioned that you do your testing on Bee and Selleck Creek. Bee Creek more than Selleck Creek, that's an artesian well from the Olympic Peninsula. Why would you be testing that if it's such a short stream? Is it just an area around it? Because it's not that long and it's like literally fresh water.
Barri, do you want to take that question?
Yeah. Hi there. Yeah, we do monitor all of the discharges into the lagoon. There's been a lot of development around both of those creeks, and so we monitored through that. We only have one monitoring location, which is the discharge of the creek, of those two creeks, except, so actually no, Selleck, we only have one monitoring location, and B, we have two locations, one being a little bit farther upstream near the bridge, and that's where we monitor benthic invertebrates. And we did see a little bit of a change in the benthic community before and after some of the development that has occurred. We did have sediment inputs into the creek when there was development occurring. And so, yeah, we are continuing to monitor those. Of course, it's up to Colwood whether they want to continue that monitoring. If there's a desire to stop it, we can always do that as well.
And then I would add to that, because there's so many on-site septic systems within Colwood, that low-lying area is one of the discharge areas for a lot of the groundwater in that area. So septic systems can certainly impact groundwater and seep into those areas. So that's another reason why we want to try and do some monitoring in that area.
Thank you. Does anyone else on the committee have any questions? So I have a couple of questions, but I'll open it up to you first. No? Okay, thank you. There's obviously a clear alignment between the CRD's environmental programs and the City of Colwood's strategic goals. I just have a couple of questions. Do we have real-time access to the CRD stormwater quality data for the lagoon? And can you remind me, in the presentation, you spoke to the frequency for which it's being monitored?
The marine environment or the discharges into it?
The discharges into it.
Okay, so they're monitored every year, once in the wet season, once in the dry season. The creeks are monitored more intensively than that every 5 years. So they're monitored every year at the discharge, and then upstream where there's locations we monitor within the creeks. And that data is reported annually in our annual stormwater quality report for the core area. That usually goes to more of the engineering staff, and if anybody else would like that report, it's also posted on our website. And you can also get the data more quickly if you'd like to anyone wants to contact me and get more up-to-date data, because the annual report usually comes out about 3 to 4 months after the end of the monitoring year. So the 2025 report came out in June, because we monitored right up till the end of December.
Great, thank you, Barri.
Are you able to put a link in the chat, Barri, for
Sure.
the location of that report?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes, and there is a lot of data in it because the other municipalities in the core area, all the data from each of those municipalities is in there. So if you like a little snippet or you just want to know about a particular discharge, you can always contact me and I can send you data for, as far back as you want.
That's great. Thank you, Barri. I have another question, but I'll yield to Councillor Grove here. Go ahead, David.
Thanks very much, Chair. I have a question about the septic. The whole lagoon area was sewered, I can't remember, 10 years ago? Somebody on staff have a date when most of that work was done. It had to be 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, through the chair, it'd be 10 plus for sure.
Yeah.
I can get the exact date, but
So I'm just curious if there's any noticeable difference in this data that we were discussing in the lagoon specifically. Just my own observation, the whole place smells a whole lot less pungent, especially in those summer heat waves than it used to when I first moved here 30 years ago. So it seems there's an improvement. I don't know. Is there any correlation between that?
Barri, I don't know if you have looked at that specifically from the bacterial data, but that's probably something we could take away and do a bit of a dive into.
We don't see.
Go ahead.
I would have to look specifically at the date that the area was sewered, which I think was at least 15 years ago. which is a little bit before some of that before my time. And so our monitoring program has gotten a little bit more intense since then, but we certainly have data into the probably late 90s, early 2000s, and we could look at that. In general, the lagoon doesn't have a lot of bacteria inputs from the stormwater and hasn't for a long time. The bacteria is fairly low, and most of the bacteria we see is from birds.
Okay,
And
We
while
know that
this-
because we do genetic testing. When we do find an elevated count, we will do a genetic test to determine if it's human or other animals.
And then while some of the areas were sewered, there still exists like over 3,000 septic systems in Colwood.
yeah, for sure. And somehow the watershed is connected often.
It sure is.
Yeah. The other question was around the AAP requirement for the funding acquisitions. And can you explain a little better what that's about and perhaps budget reference to that? You're making reference to the budget, and I just don't know what that budget is about or how much it is or where it appears.
So each service, so the harbor service, the stormwater quality program, the goose management service, the biodiversity service, each of those services have their own budget and cost sharing formula, and that's determined through the establishing bylaws for each of those services. So more recently, the way that the CRD or regional districts now have the ability to establish regional services, I think there's 3 different mechanisms within the Local Government Act to establish regional services. One of them is the AAP, which is the alternative approval process. So whenever we're now doing regional services, the alternative approval process is the only process that can be utilized in electoral areas. So when we're now doing regional services, we do a region-wide AAP, and under that, the electorate is given an opportunity to say, no, we do not want to have that service. So if 10% of the electorate, which for our region is around 34,000 individuals, if they disagree with the creation of the service, then it does not proceed.
Well, thank you very much for that. Thanks for the report. It was awesome. I learned a lot here, and I can see we have lots of opportunity to access much more information from you ongoing. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I just had one more question, more just curiosity. If you could elaborate a little bit on the First Nations harvest. And I'm curious if there's a current plan to implement this strategy in Colwood.
There was a First Nation, so we have 4 nations who participated in harvests this year. The way we determine where a harvest is needed is all about the numbers. So that's why we do the winter surveys and the molt surveys to figure out where the largest concentrations are and where we're seeing the most impacts. In 2024, there was a harvest that occurred in this area. In 2025, it was along the Oak Bay Victoria waterfront and as well up in along the Saanich Peninsula shoreline.
Okay, thank you, Jody. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Okay. So we do have a motion just that the Waterfront Stewardship Committee recommend council receive the presentation on CRD programs for information. So if I can get a motion. Thank you, Mr. McKay. Any further discussion? I'm seeing none. Anyone opposed? Seeing nobody opposed, so motion carried. Thank you. And thank you so much, Jody, Barri, and Jennifer, for your presentation today. It was appreciated.
No problem. And we look forward to any further discussions regarding how we can work together, particularly around Esquimalt Lagoon.
Oh, sorry, actually, before you jump away, I just Sorry, I just noticed Chris there has his, no, we're good. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank
We'll-
you.
We will now move on to item
Thank
5.2.
you.
The draft biodiversity reports and strategy framework. This item was referred to this committee by council for review and feedback at the September 8th council meeting. Carolyn, Richman, climate planner, and Cassandra Cummings from Diamond Head Consulting hi Cassandra, are here with us today to provide a brief presentation, and then we will open it up to questions from the committee. So welcome, and please go ahead. Carolyn.
Thank you very much, Chair and Committee. We really appreciate your time today to update you on the biodiversity project. We provided a bit of an overview of the project early on to this committee, and as the Chair mentioned, we were asked by Council to come back and give you an update in the draft assessment reports and whatnot that we have to show you today. So I'm just going to give a few introductory comments and then pass it over to Cassandra, who's on the line here. Oh, wait, we got it, maybe? Oh, okay, got it. All right, we're good from, yeah, Cassandra is steering then. So this project is to assess biodiversity across Colwood and plan for biodiversity conservation. This is made a priority in the Climate Action Plan, which was adopted in 2023, and Council provided funding in our 2024-2025 budget through our provincial climate action funding. The Esquimalt Lagoon assessment was an addition to this project, so we could look more closely at human impacts of Esquimalt Lagoon, which was directed by Council in November 2023. So as mentioned, we have with us today Cassandra Cummings, lead for Diamond Head Consulting, who's our contractors for this project. And I've been able to work with a great team across different departments at Colwood, from Parks, GIS, Planning, and Communications. So what we've provided you today is the staff report that we gave Council in early September, along with the attachments, which include some draft assessment reports that Cassandra is going to tell you more about, and a framework that we have been using so far to engage the public towards the development of the strategy. We had, as some of you may know, a biodiversity celebration at Royal Roads last weekend with many partners, and we were able to hear from some public members towards the strategy and the framework that we were discussing with them. And we now have, from that time, a virtual open house that's open on our Let's Talk Colwood page. And so now I'm just going to turn it over to Cassandra to tell you a little bit more about the package of information that you received and where we're at with the project.
Great, thanks, Carolyn. And thank you for having me here today. It's always fun to get to talk about these projects. This is just a quick agenda for what I'm going to chat about today. Do a brief overview of the project, and then focus a bit more on the initial 2 reports and the framework that have been developed to date, talking through some of the results, and then kind of ending with a summary and next steps of what we're working on over the next few months to finish up the project. Super quick project overview. Colwood is committed to protecting the environment. And they're showing this through the development of the biodiversity conservation strategy. Sometimes we get asked why it's important. So many different reasons that you can come up with. It's important in and of itself, of course, but especially in the face of our biodiversity crisis and our climate crisis, as well as all of the ecosystem services that biodiversity provides within our cities. So it's really important not just to have biodiversity out there, but to have it protected and accessible within our cities as well. So as part of our work, we developed basically a snapshot of the current state of biodiversity within the city. And that's the State of Biodiversity report. And so that's kind of the big picture, moment in time. What does biodiversity look like right now? As well as the Esquimalt Lagoon piece as well. It needed some more additional attention. And so there's the separate report focused on that. And then we developed a framework for improving habitat and expanding networks within the city. And so the framework's going to be used kind of going forward to start developing the strategy itself. This is just to show that we've done a bunch of work to date, largely the technical analysis side of things. I'll get into methods a little bit today, but not a ton. Currently, the framework is underway and being considered as part of the engagement work, and will be used to kind of draft that biodiversity strategy. And engagement is, of course, ongoing. As Carolyn mentioned, there was the October 18th event with Royal Roads and CRD. There's the online story map and survey, which is still ongoing. The story map is ending as of tomorrow. So if anyone has a favorite place they want to go put on a map for us, that's always helpful. And the survey is ongoing a little bit longer. From here, we'll be working on some staff workshops, committee presentations such as today, and continuing on eventually bringing it to council. Talking about the state of biodiversity within the city, we had 3 biologists conduct strategic visits across the city. We really tried to make sure that we selected areas that were both kind of spatially diverse, so spread out across the city, as well as trying to see different types of habitats kind of within the city boundaries. We're looking to verify the accuracy of our spatial data, the GIS data we had, understand ecological characteristics and conditions, and make sure, I'll get into it in a moment, but we also did some water course analysis. So we wanted to make sure that what we found were for real. So on the spatial analysis side, we started using TEM data, or terrestrial ecosystem mapping. It was in good shape as a starting point for Colwood, and so it was really useful to have that provide ecological information kind of per site throughout the city. We ran what's called a flow accumulation model, and so that's just a model to see kind of how water is predicted to move through the city. So this can help us do things like refine watercourse locations, so we have a more accurate line work of where your watercourses are, as well as potentially, and we did identify a few more that were unmapped. And so, as I said, we were able to go and verify some of those in the field as well. We also looked at species at risk and Garry Oak ecosystem mapping, and we used that field data combined with all of the TEM data and the watercourse data as a basis for our analysis for the biodiversity ranking, and then ultimately for the connectivity network as well. We've already talked a bit about engagement. There is the Let's Talk Colwood page that's up and running. This is occasionally updated as we kind of move through the process. There is both the story map and the survey available through the Let's Talk Colwood page. And as mentioned, we'll continue on with additional engagement events throughout the next few months. Looking at the state of biodiversity in Colwood, it's part of what's called a BEC zone. So it's a fancy term, but basically it's just defining an ecosystem at a kind of big spatial scale. And so that's called the Coastal Douglas Fir Moist Maritime. That's pretty common in the southeast edge of Vancouver Island, but it's very rare within British Columbia and within Canada. And so it's actually considered the most at-risk climate zone in BC. There's a number of diverse different types of habitats in Colwood. We have terrestrial, freshwater, and wetland systems across the city. We did find those Garry Oak or ecosystems, or camas meadows, as they're also known. You have a bunch of different freshwater and, of course, marine interface with the Esquimalt Lagoon there. And it's quite diverse terrestrial habitat and forest compositions. This is our biodiversity ranking map. And so what this tries to do is try and identify some of your most important natural areas for biodiversity within city limits. It starts to bring in all the different information I showed you in some of the earlier conversations, but essentially it's trying to identify, okay, where's access to water? Because that tends to be pretty critical for life. And so oftentimes you can kind of see a number of the water courses kind of pop out as like a darker green, as well as some of the more mixed wood stands. These tend to just provide a greater variety of habitat, a bit more structural diversity, and just kind of provide really good variety of food for different species. And so those tend to pop out as well. And then it's also looking for kind of big connected natural areas. Sometimes your coniferous forests come out as a little bit lower than you might have anticipated. Usually that's because they're, second growth, and they don't actually support quite as much biodiversity as some of those more mixed wood or deciduous or wetland type areas, which do come out as higher. We were then able to use all of these inputs, bringing them together to look at the ecological connectivity. And so this is just looking to try and understand how your natural areas are connected within the city, and then maybe how species are moving through the city as well. So we identified what's called habitat hubs. And so these are your biggest, most important habitat patches. And these typically have things like refuge habitat. So they have some interior spaces where species can go without too much interactions with humans for kind of your less tolerant species. Habitat sites are usually a bit smaller, often a bit more fragmented, and then they often have kind of a greater surface area. So maybe they're a funky shape, or they just don't have that kind of quiet space in the middle. So those are some of these areas in light green here. And then we have connectivity corridors, which are in yellow on this map. And these ones are looking to try and connect your different habitat hubs and sites kind of together. And this entire network that I'm showing you right now is based on existing kind of what's on the ground. And so it's very, just trying to understand like what's happening right now within the city. Next steps of what we might do with this, and we've already been having some conversations with staff, would be to potentially try and come up with some ideas to improve connectivity within the city going forward. And so there's still, haven't figured out what that looks like, but it could be things like trying to connect some of your smaller habitat sites together. It could be creating new corridors. If you know if like a bike route or something is going to go in, you can try and make it multi-purpose. So there is some kind of future aspirational pieces to come. But this is connectivity as it looks on the ground today. Looking at the human impact assessment for Esquimalt Lagoon. It's a very important ecological feature within Colwood and the surrounding area. It's an important part of the Pacific Flyway and stopover point for migratory birds. It has a variety of valuable habitat, such as estuary, salt marsh, coastal sand ecosystems, gravel beds, eelgrasses, and kelp beds. Esquimalt Lagoon's been impacted by humans. I don't think that's a crazy out there statement. And so we were hired to start to kind of pull together some of the existing research out there to try and understand what some of these impacts are. And so over the last few decades, there's been changes to sediment supplies, disturbances to bird population, development, some changes in water quality, vegetation impacts, Off-leash dogs, always a problem in natural areas. Hard one to work on. People love their dogs, but they do have an impact. Invasive plant species, as well as, of course, invasive animal species, which were talked about a little bit in the CRD presentation, as well as climate change. Jumping into the so what, the next steps of what we're going to be recommending going forward. So far, it's just the biodiversity conservation strategy framework. And so this is looking to start to develop a vision. Where does Colwood want to go in terms of protecting biodiversity into the future? This will kind of set that high level direction. We have a preliminary goal, which I'll share with you on the next slide. This one's now in the survey online, looking for some feedback, preliminary to get us kind of started on how we maybe want to start seeing these on the ground changes going forward. We have 5 high-level principles and strategies. And then once these have been kind of vetted through some of the engagement processes, we'll start to develop a series of actions. And so these would be more kind of specific recommendations that would be developed through the strategy that are looking to actually support the implementation of the goal. So, and of the principles and strategies. The goal as it stands today is that the City of Colwood prioritizes an integrated approach to the interconnected issues of climate change and biodiversity loss, including through the use of nature-based solutions. The city consistently increases protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecological connectivity to ensure the community and its natural assets are healthy, resilient, accessible, and conserved for future generations. We've developed a series of principles to try and help make that goal a reality. The first one is to protect, restore, and enhance biodiversity, climate resilience, and ecological function. Establish ecological connectivity across the city and in partnership with neighboring jurisdictions. Integrate biodiversity and climate resilience into municipal planning and decision-making. Engage and involve the community to be environmental stewards and contribute towards biodiversity and climate action goals. Develop policies and staff support to define and guide nature-based solutions that address climate action, other societal challenges, and provide measurable biodiversity benefits. Bit of a word vomit there, but lots of interesting concepts in there. And then the ultimate goal, like I said, would be to come up with some actions to help make these reality. Next steps, engagement's ongoing. As mentioned, the story map is looking to close tomorrow, I believe, and the survey is ongoing for a little longer. We'll be working on and finalizing these initial technical reports with any additional feedback that we receive, as well as continue developing the draft strategy based on the framework that we've shared, with the goal of bringing the strategy to council in February. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn and Cassandra. These reports provide a strong science-based foundation for Colwood's approach to biodiversity and climate resilience. So thank you for that. Council has asked that this committee review and provide feedback for the biodiversity report, the human impact assessment, and conservation strategy. To support the process, today our Deputy Corporate Officer, Heather Power, will be taking notes throughout the discussion. And once the conversation is complete, a summary of your feedback, our feedback will be compiled and shared with the committee for a review. This was also sent to the Parks and Environment Committee. And I think Heather was going to bring it up on the screen. They've done a lot of the heavy lifting. But they've also provided their feedback and comments on these reports as well for council's consideration. So I thought perhaps I would just give us a moment to kind of take a look at the points. So don't feel rushed, maybe just take a look and see if there's basically what we're looking for is any additional feedback that you would like added to that today. So maybe we'll just take a take a minute or two if that's okay, to kind of review those bullets. Okay, yeah. Also, just to the committee, if there's any specific points that you'd like emphasized or clarified in the summary, feel free to raise them or flag them afterwards. So if you're looking for any clarity, please feel free to, oh, we've got somebody, Chris.
Yeah, I'd just like to sort of echo and support the comments here from Parks and Environment Committee about back and front yards as being very important for the consideration of connectivity. I was going to raise that based on the presentation because I saw they were absent from the overview of sort of green space and connection within Colwood, but I noticed they've commented here, so I'd like to sort of support that.
Great, thank you, Chris. I see we've got a couple of questions here. Go ahead, Rick.
The issue of no boating on the lagoon side. I can understand any kind of power boat. That shouldn't be a no-no. But canoes, kayaks, I don't see what the issue is. Because traditionally, right now, there's 3 boat ramp areas. There's one in Portsmouth, there's one for the Pendry Estate that they've had one, and there's one for Royal Roads. And Royal Roads has always had one for sailing boats, for cadets, and even when the Dunsmuirs had it. And in each case, there's no power boat. So I don't know how that possibly could affect the ecosystem or the birds or whatever, because just paddling a light boat is, to me, is a non-issue. And considering that there's been 3 areas already on there, and one is the municipality at the bottom of Portsmouth.
Thank you. And I think that, again, this is just exploring, right? So these are things that staff will explore, and that information will come to council, and council will have a deeper dive into what the impacts are if we do decide to look at saying no boats, no kayaks, no canoes. Go ahead, Farley.
Thanks, Misty. I'm just wondering, I'm thinking in terms of takeaways, and I'm thinking in terms of, okay, what comes out of these reports? So I just want to get some feedback in terms of what are the 2 most primary actions with dollar implications that are going to come out of this framework?
That's a very good question. Perhaps, oh, Carolyn, if you could elaborate. Thank you.
Hi, through the chair. Just to clarify, you're wondering the 2 most primary actions to come out of the framework?
Yeah, basically out of the framework. Is assuming that not everything's going to be done. Let's, kind of be realistic. What are the 2 most important things that have to be done? They're also going to have some financial implications.
So I'll just clarify, the framework was developed to give us an outline of how we will develop this strategy. So that strategy hasn't been developed yet. That's just a framework that council endorsed for us to talk to the public about, and to allow us to further develop what our strategy will be, including guiding strategies and actions and whatnot. So sorry if I'm not maybe.
Well, I think it's similar to one's, when one's doing graduate studies and always writes the conclusions and recommendations before they define the problem. So I'm assuming there's some leaning towards specific things already that the report will essentially back up. Any indication at this point?
Cassandra,
I'll jump in. I'd say at this point it's too early to say. We have not started getting into the specific actions with the team yet, and so from a QEP perspective, I have some ideas, but nothing's been discussed or vetted yet at this point. But once those actions are developed in the next month or two, we do include some kind of implementation recommendations. We usually meet with staff to try and have those conversations around, okay, which would be most meaningful for you and for your team? What do you see as having the biggest impact? We have opinions too, of course, and we'll kind of share those and collectively come together on that front. And so usually we comes up with some suggestions for prioritization of implementation. And then we do include just kind of a high level suggestion on kind of the associated costs that would be included with that, but it's fairly high level, but that will be included as part of the draft strategy.
Does that answer your question, Farley? So I think from this feedback, like this session here and looking for feedback from the committees, that will then come back and those,
Sure.
They'll go through and prioritize what the top items are. Yeah. Sarah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering about the dog restrictions on the ocean side. Why is it specific to the ocean side? Have we discussed dog restrictions on the lagoon side? Am I missing that? Is that included in the animal bylaw or where?
So again, this is just feedback that's come from the Parks and Environment Committee, to which David is a part of. If he wants to comment, he's more than welcome to jump in. So this is just specific feedback that has come from them. So I think, if there's something that you would like to add to this list, this would absolutely be the time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. The lagoon side should be definitely considered in that statement, more so than the ocean side, in my opinion, as a biologist.
I think that we could, I'll let Councillor Gross speak to it, and then we can certainly add to it. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. We have in the restriction at the washroom building, rather, to the east is dog leash, to the west is off leash. It's not delineated either way. It's like the whole lagoon sanctuary is on leash. But point taken.
Okay, thanks. So Sarah, just to clarify, did you want to add a point then?
Yes.
So Heather is taking notes. So again, if there's items that you would like to add to this, we can certainly do that. So, okay. And I think she has captured that. So I will move to Mr. Willing. Do you have something to add as well?
Not for this, not for the dog business, but for the chair. The private property be included within the report. Next phase includes metrics for assessing biodiversity on private property. I have a very serious issue with that because it allows basically people to say that because you have a certain plant on your property that is not is considered to be invasive, you've got to be really very, very careful with that, because I have an issue right now with I have a plant that I have grown for over not in my new house. My new house is up in Grattan Road, and I've grown that plant for 30 years. And I've given cuttings to people. I've never had an invasive problem with it in 30 years. And some ding dong right now online is posted that this plant is invasive. It's not invasive. So it's a slippery slope. You've got to be very careful, because next thing you know, you're going to come along and tell me you can't grow this, you can't grow that, you can't grow that. Be careful with it.
Thank you, Mr. Willing. Again, this is high level, so feedback from the other committee as well. So, but point taken. Does anybody else have any points that they would like to add? Seeing none.
Would it be all right if I just provided a quick response to the private property question?
Please go ahead, Cassandra.
Just because it's been brought up twice now. I just wanted to clarify that we did include private property in our high-level spatial analysis. And so we didn't differentiate between land ownership. It was just more what's on the land. And so to the earlier question around connectivity, the reason most of the connectivity areas are on public land is just because of that's where the remaining natural areas are. And so there were some requirements for where we put some of those corridors in terms of just having a continuous width of native plants. And so some of those sites are probably private property as well. It's just we didn't differentiate between that in our initial analysis. So just thought I'd throw that part out there now.
Thank you, Cassandra. So just one more call for any further feedback from the committee. Okay, and seeing none. Heather, would you like to share that you've got it up there already? Great. So I will just read it out that the Waterfront Stewardship Committee provide the following comments on the biodiversity report, human impact assessment, and conservation strategy for council's consideration. Encouraging the planting of trees on private property, specifically in both front and backyards as a means to enhance biodiversity and climate resilience, restricting boating on the lagoon side to protect the ecosystem and biodiversity, but supports the continued use of non-motorized watercraft such as kayaks and similar vessels. Exploration of dog restrictions on the lagoon side to minimize disturbances to wildlife and protect sensitive habitats. The staff recommendation that the Waterfront Stewardship Committee provide the following comments for council's consideration, and that staff be directed to use the strategy framework to guide public engagement for the development of a biodiversity conservation strategy. Can I get a motion? All in favor? Sarah Gibbons. Glenn, you look like you have something to say, perhaps. I don't, can you hit your microphone? Sorry, I don't want to, there you go.
Just to your restricted voting on the lagoon side. I don't understand where you're talking about motors or what you're talking about here, but we were restricted. We used to corporately row on for several years on in the lagoon, but it was closed off because we used to have support boats, coach boats that were motor powered. They've been off there for years, and there's no power boats on there right now, and there hasn't been for years. So I don't know even why that part is that restrict boating. What kind of boat you're talking about? Power boats, because further down you say, well, we still support the non-motorized watercraft such as kayaks and similar vessels, but the front of that, the lead up of that should be wiped right off there because it doesn't exist at the present time. There are no power boats on the lagoon. If there were, there'd be somebody all over them. You can't run a power boat there, no matter what size motor it is. Okay.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Not really my topic, if I may, through the chair.
Yeah.
I think this was meant to be a response to the previous committee's recommendation, which was to explore no boating period in the lagoon. And this is a bit of a counter to that to say, no. We actually do, this committee is wanting us to actually maintain non-motorized watercraft such as kayaks and similar vessels.
Which it already has. It's maintained now.
Correct. So I think it's just
a blended
point to say this committee said this committee is saying something different. Consider both.
I don't think we're not here to strike anything that was recommended by the Parks Environment Committee. So this is more of just a blended point of between us and the Waterfront Stewardship Committee. So yeah. Okay, I'm going to, so we do have a motion on the table, but go ahead, Rick.
Just a point to consider here, if they ever do it. The YMCA had they had boating sculls down there about 10, 15 years ago. And when they have those kind of boats for competition purposes, they always have to have a chase boat. Well, the chase boats were a power boat. They were small, but they still had to have a power boat. Now, I don't know whether they're ever going to do that again, but that's worthy of consideration if they do decide to bring in racing boats again, paddling the sculls. So that's the only time there's ever, and in the last number of years where there was a power boat. And then the other one, just out of point of interest, which was really interesting, was the birds of feather B&B. The guy allowed brought a float plane in, and you should have seen the holy hell was raised about that.
I did not see that.
That's years ago.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor. So I guess all in favor of the recommendation that the Waterfront Stewardship Committee provide the following comments for council's consideration.
Can I suggest a slight change to the first bullet, please?
Yes, go ahead, Chris.
Sure. Can I wonder if we could add encourage the planting of trees and other native species? So not just to restrict to trees.
Heather, did you capture that? I couldn't quite hear, Christopher. Okay. Okay. So can you see the screen, Chris?
Yeah, no, that looks good now. Thanks.
Okay, great. Okay. Any further? You still vote yes. Okay. Okay. So anyone opposed? Nobody's opposed. Oh, Glenn, you have got your, no. No, I'm gonna, no, that was an accidental push. Okay. Nobody's opposed, so motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Cassandra. Okay. So if I can just take a brief recess for 4 minutes, and then we'll come back and move on to item 5.3. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Grove. Gonna reel you back in.
He's striking the railroad.
Right? Okay. Thank you, everybody. We're just gonna carry on. We're now moving on to item 5.3, the Waterfront Stewardship Plan. This item was also referred to this committee by council for review and feedback at the September 2025 council meeting. Desiree Givens is lead on this item and is here to introduce this to us. So thank you, Desiree.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a presentation prepared for this afternoon, but I will just provide a brief update on the implementation strategy. So the strategy is intended to help guide the vision of the Waterfront Stewardship Plan to action. It identifies priorities, timelines, and departments responsible for leading each of the action items within the Waterfront Stewardship Plan. That in the near term, the focus will be on the first phase of the implementation, which will include detailed design for the multi-use pathway, ongoing archaeological and environmental assessments, and continued engagement and coordination with the Esquimalt and Songhees nations. So there is a clear funding timeline for this project. The federal funding needs to be spent before 2028. And the city departments are going to be working together over the next several years to ensure that projects are on track and aligned. Today, we're asking for a recommendation from the committee and we're seeking feedback on the implementation strategy. So if you have any comments or feedback, we're open and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time. But in closing, the strategy is intended to give a very clear roadmap for how the Waterfront Stewardship Plan will roll out over the next 10 years or more. And thank you.
Great. Thank you, Desiree. So just to the committee, this is another item where council has asked this committee review and provide feedback. Heather will once again be taking notes throughout the discussion. And once the conversation is complete, a summary of your feedback will be compiled and shared with the committee for review. So what we're looking for, if anybody has any questions specific to the implementation strategy, again, we're looking for feedback and, you know, if anybody has any comments and had the opportunity to review some of the action items that are outlined in table 1. Please, oh, we do, all right. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. McKay.
The final report. I've got a copy, but does everyone else have a copy? Do the members have a copy?
Sorry, you're looking for
the final report of the Colwood,
the Waterfront Stewardship Plan?
Yeah.
It is linked in the
I don't think everyone's got a copy.
There is,
I
believe there is a link in.
It's like 70 pages. Of which the walkway is part of it.
I'm sorry, but there is a link to the report in here. Do you have a question?
Well, would we normally get a hard copy or do we have to look at it online?
You can request a hard copy. Corporate Services is happy to provide anyone with a printed version of any report that comes onto an agenda. So my apologies if you did not know that, but no, we don't typically hand out hard copies unless they're requested. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, because I know we didn't get the draft report from 4 years ago either. So that was just
okay. Well,
just a moot point.
Yeah, if you just in the future, Rick, if you would like a hard copy of any of the appendixes or attachments or reports, please just let Corporate Services know.
Because it's an engaging report. I mean, like it's 70 pages.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway.
They are typically long reports. Go ahead, Farley.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just re-raising a point I raised at the last meeting in terms of we need to get something done concrete in the first half of this coming year. If it's not the first quarter, certainly early on in the second quarter. Something that actually moves this thing along a little bit more quickly. I have ones myself and my residents along, fellow residents along Ocean Boulevard have concerns about, and that relates to traffic calming measures. That's at least something that has to be done really quick. It impacts what's going on, frankly. I don't want to see another bird hit by a car. Ocean Boulevard is turning into a drag strip. There's been a lot more skid marks this year than I've seen in the 6 years we've lived on Ocean Boulevard. I think it's getting way worse. So we have to see some positive actions coming out of this in the next few months. So it's not delayed any further. So I just want to re-emphasize that. And I'm going to put once again a plug in for the traffic calming measures are absolutely necessary.
Thank you for that feedback. And advancing the implementation strategy will allow us to get staff to get working on the waterfront stewardship plan. Heather, do we have feedback from?
No, this is the first committee that has seen this, so they haven't, there's no other committee that's given feedback on the implementation strategy.
Okay.
That's Appendix 3, I think is what council is looking for, feedback from this committee or endorsement.
Okay. Sorry, I thought that there was feedback from the other committee. No, so we are the first. Okay. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Here, thank you. If the request is in for something to be done in the interim or something to be done soon for traffic calming, I would certainly support it. But I know that there's money has to be allocated for these things or whatever. But one concern I do have, and it's a comment to staff, is that if you were commencing anything regarding this project, I think you should be keeping the committee abreast of these things because quite often we're the sounding board for the community. People come and ask us questions, and I have 2 questions right now that happened last week, and one is the ground radar that was in there about a week ago, and also the hole that was being dug in the inside of the compound that was where the original pub was. This is a sign of things. If this is a sign of things to come, at least say there could be preliminary work going on related to this project, because ground penetrating radar is a very sensitive thing with a lot of people right now. I think I know why it was being done. That's probably, we talked about capping things over sometimes, and this could be related to that, but I'm just assuming.
Thank you, Mr. Willing. Okay, I think it's really important to note in this implementation strategy, I like to highlight that some actions that are identified will begin immediately following adoption, while others will be phased in over the immediate short and long term, depending on council direction, available funding, and staff capacity. I see that you have another question. Go ahead. You had your mic on. Did you have another question? No? Okay. Okay, is there any other questions, comments, or feedback on the implementation strategy? No, it was that good. Hey, Heather, the recommendation? Oh, Neve has a question.
I have a question about can you put the table back up?
Oh,
sorry. The third one there, the Organize the Sediment Nourish pilot project and follow up, to me that just seems very vague. And I would question that that is a much bigger undertaking than maybe what that statement says, because I would imagine you're going to need permits to do anything with adding nourishment as a pilot project. So I think there needs to be some kind of clarity, or I don't know, I just think it's a bit vague. And that, like, I know it says timing 2026 to 2031, but a pilot project kind of indicates that it might lead to something else. And I know budget has been a concern with this committee in the past, so just maybe getting some clarity on that one might be useful.
Sorry, Neil, which one are you speaking
The
to?
third one, the third of the first.
PA3?
Yeah.
Engage
Oh, no,
archaeological.
sorry, PA1.
Oh,
And then the third bullet.
organize a sediment nourishment pilot project and follow up with engineering analysis and reporting.
Because it also then just kind of lends itself as to like, why are we doing a pilot project and spending all this money on it when it might not be needed for anything? And it very well could be, particularly with the way permits are needed and this kind of thing, but it's just a bit vague. So I think it just needs to be clarified.
Okay, thanks. I do see that you have your hand up, Chris, but I'm just going to let engineering speak to that. Please go ahead, Josh.
Thanks. You're absolutely right. So permitting could be this is really hot. Could be a large challenge, and that's why it's we could probably word that a little differently, that we're going to try to look at that. We've reached out to our the permitting folks that are helping us out through this, and if we're able to do a pilot program, I think if we're able to deem it pilot, we might be able to get a localized permit and try something out. But it's an endeavor to try to better our chances for our planting program and have better uptake. So if we can start to do a little thing inside of 26, which is our permitting window, so that when we come in 27 with full implementation, we'll have a higher success rate for our plantings. We may not be able to do that, but this is one of our hopes. So if that paints a little bit more clarity around it, that is what we're trying to do.
Do you have a follow-up question for? Sure.
You know, from talking to your permitting folks, have they opened this with DFO yet?
As of today, I'm not sure if we've heard back about it yet, but we've reached out to see if it's feasible, if they would permit it. I don't think we've heard back yet.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris, please go ahead. I see you have your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. I might be, I had a question, but just sort of following up from that last comment, that was a big topic of conversation in the sort of previous incarnation of this committee around beach nourishment and things like that to address the sea level rise issue. So I don't know if that was, there's probably a lot of stuff around that elsewhere that we've come across. But my particular question was, I can't see, given that we just heard some sort of great work done by the biodiversity people, there doesn't seem to be much in here related to some of the themes that were picked up from that, particularly around sort of the connectivity side of things. So I'm just wondering if, I mean, there's lots of stuff in these action plans sort of reviewing various bits and pieces around policies and plans. But I wonder if there should also be a consideration of connecting what's being done here to that biodiversity question, as the waterfront is such a crucial part of that. And I mean more than just the bird sanctuary.
That perhaps Desiree would like to respond to that.
Yes, absolutely. I think when this plan was drafted, it was pre the biodiversity strategies, and the intention moving forward is to update this plan. So it's going to be flexible to incorporate the findings from that strategy, and we'll update it every 5 years. We're open to integrating some of the learnings from that strategy into the plan before that 5-year review, if council decides that they'd like us to incorporate it. But yeah, so this plan isn't set in stone. It's meant to be flexible and adapt to changing circumstances and as we learn new information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Desiree. Is there any further questions from the committee? Seeing Councillor Groves, mic light up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just curious, is it not the bus number 60 that goes down that hill now? Carly, do you know? 60, yeah, not the 52. On PA7 talks about increasing the bus service. I know it's a little bit technical. They changed their service. Hopefully, that would mean they're looking to increase the service there, which is part of. And by looking at the traffic this morning again, I was curious the number of cars to and from. If we have a traffic counter down there, Joshua, do we on the spit peninsula?
Through the chair, not permanently, but we have a mobile we could, and I believe we have in the past implemented.
Yeah, it seems just my own observations from being able to see a stretch of that from my house, the numbers of cars seem to be increasing in the past. I'd say even 6 months, 9 months. It's as if it sort of plateaus for a bit and then it gets significantly worse. It's almost the way you see it. There was a fellow I know who lived down there 30 years ago. He said there were 16 cars would travel to work across that. And then 10 years later, or 15 years later, it was 1,600 cars that would travel. Now I'd be really curious to know, because it's not a proper road. We're talking about particulate from tires. There's also brake dust and all the other elements that come off of vehicles to consider. And I think to do their soil studies, I'm sure that's part of the problem we have there with various forms of life. Thanks.
So we can confirm that that's bus 70 and not bus 52. That's 60. 60. Okay. Any other comments? No.
Well, just responding what Dave raised, or Council Grove raised, when this is fully implemented, I'd hate to imagine the number of cars that are going to be going down Ocean Boulevard. It's going to be ridiculous. It could easily be, I mean, I can't say it's going to be double, but this is going to be probably the primary beach on the peninsula, period. So yeah, that's going to increase substantially. So we might as well start figuring out the implications at that point and bring it forward.
Anybody, are you wanting to make a motion or something? I feel like there's something being created here. Oh, okay.
If we implement as per this report we have that Paul DeGrief did with traffic calming measures, and it's put in correctly, I think that would possibly deter some of these people coming down their high speed. I, for one, we moved out here. We've lived here most of our life, but we moved out here because of the enjoyment of coming back from town, going across the bridge and down the peninsula. And I would hate to ever see that would be compromised. We live in this area. That's our neighborhood. Other people coming there, well, I don't know what we're going to do about that, but we live in the neighborhood. We enjoy it and we don't abuse it. And I think if we put proper, like as per the report, proper walkways, proper traffic calming, I believe it'll go a long ways. But I believe I can completely concur with David. Is I can see at 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning, it's a steady stream of traffic. Because people are avoiding the Souk Road, they're avoiding veterans. There's got to be some other measures to take the pressure off it. But if people want to continue to go down there and they want to speed, well, if you start putting speed bumps, I tell you, it's going to deter some of them from coming down there. So, in fact, it was worse a few years ago when there wasn't much traffic. You used to get these, there was a guy on Ocean Boulevard at the end of your road. At the far end, he had a Porsche.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. There was no one on the road at 6 in the morning, and I knew who he was, and it was like a bullet.
Yeah.
Going right to the very end with his 911. I rest my case.
Yes, please, Josh.
If I may, through the chair. So this project is going to take a number of years to fully implement and realize, and I'm hearing a lot of conversation about traffic calming in the area. I've just checked in with our engineer coordinator to see if there's, I'm sure I know council and maybe this committee is aware of our traffic calming and traffic safety initiatives program. So we have an existing funding source to address traffic calming inside of Colwood. We have a matrix to evaluate calls when they come in, and we have a running list. So I guess I would just encourage local residents that live in this area, if you're seeing that, we actually don't have any calls for service related to traffic calming in Ocean Boulevard right at the lagoon. And if that surprises you and you have like lived experience of people that have called in, I would like to know, because it means we have a gap in how we're receiving those. And what that means is we would then evaluate it through our matrix. If you're high enough on the list, we would come to council. We'd say, hey, this is our new list. Here's where you are. It's going to cost us 10 grand, 50 grand, whatever it is. Would you like us to implement it? Yes. And then we could come and do that. It would be in consideration for this project, of course, but if it was high enough on the list, we could do that next year. We could do that late next year. We could do it ahead of this project. Not to say it would be, we'd have to run it through the matrix and see. But I just wanted to, there's a lot of conversation around implementation and traffic calming, and I just wanted to try to bring it back to Colwood Waterfront Stewardship report. And then from this is really just a list derived from that report, which are actions. So even the comment about the biodiversity and this report, although biodiversity has come sort of afterwards and maybe beat us and it's almost through, I don't think that the Colwood Waterfront Stewardship report is absent conversation or points on biodiversity. I think it complements it. Could we take that lens and apply it and maybe make some fine tuning? I think so, especially in the connection point. But just bringing it back to the action item list, and that this is a summary of things that are planned to be done or could be done that come out of that report. The feedback to that would be, and has been, we've had a few points actually specific to that list, would be very valuable for staff at this point.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Grove.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just for the edification of the council, because I know this number, I think you have a list you refer to, and so the committee members might be interested to know just how big that number is of, I understand it, complaints or requests for traffic calming devices that you are working with.
Thank you, Councillor Grove. We don't call them complaints, we call them concerns. When we brought it to council last, it was 63. We have more calls since then, and we constantly are getting more calls and we're evaluating them. So yeah, it's 63 at last official count.
That was a big number. Okay, I'm going to, oh, I feel like I just looked over there and I didn't see your mic on. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Mc.
Just a quick point about these studies with sedimentation. I've read every report since Colwood has been a municipality with sedimentation, the sea bulk report. There's about 3 or 4 of them. Would they be of any help to coalesce all that as opposed to reinventing the wheel? Or do we have to go start all over again? Because there's 3 or 4 reports.
Yeah, through the chair, my intent would be through that action item. I think we've achieved it. I think it's more about evaluating those 3 reports, making sure we get the right outcomes and takeaways, and solidifying those as a point. I did see that action, and it was one of my comments, and we discussed it internally ahead of this. I don't think there's a lot of value in re-exploring, or at least evaluating the existing reports we have and see if there's gaps. So that would be the intent of that. There's a lot of history here. There's been a lot of exploring, and I think this report gives us a really good framework for directions we can go. And I apologize, I don't have the list right in front of me to see what the timeline on that one was, but certainly it wouldn't be to review that in absence of work that has already been done. We would want to take that into account.
Okay, seeing no other comments, so the recommendation or motion is that the Waterfront Stewardship Committee provide the following feedback on the Waterfront Stewardship Implementation Plan for Council's consideration, and I will read the comments that Heather has captured. As implementation is undertaken, updates be provided to the committee to ensure ongoing awareness and opportunities for feedback. PA1, organize a sediment nourishment pilot project and follow up with engineering analysis and reporting. The committee requests that further details, objectives, and expected outcomes be provided to clarify the scope and intent of this initiative. Request alignment with biodiversity goals and measurable ecological outcomes. Amend PA 7 to change the bus route from 52 to 60. And consider traffic calming measures along Ocean Boulevard. So I guess I will ask the question if there's no further comments or additions. All in favor? And no one opposed. So that is carried. Thank you very much. And that does bring us to the end of our meeting today. Can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Ms. Gibbons? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Nobody's opposed. Thank you. Adjourned. Thanks everyone for your time. Thank you, staff.